We've all had that one friend that, for one reason or another, always ends up finding something they will talk about for days or even weeks, growing an obsession with it to the point that everyone around them just wants them to shut the hell up for 5 minutes, only to no avail. Be it a recent event, a commonplace occurrence, a spur-of-the-moment curiosity, so on and so forth. Despite being more energetic than anyone around them over the most seemingly spontaneous bursts of imaginative insight, you can't help but admire or lament how passionate said individuals can be about the most random things. That said, Hyouka sparks an interesting prospect when considering those exact bursts of curiosity through the show's main female lead, Chitanda Eru, and that is this. Could such admiration for such aimless passion become fuel for someone else's passions or talents? What sort of changes could take effect in someone who interacts with such energy? Would this change apply to nothing more than something small and meaningless, or would this change completely alter the other person's life and alter their entire way of thinking going forward? Needless to say, I can't help but be curious. Hyouka is a mystery slice of life explored through the perspective of Oreki Hotaro, a laid-back, self-proclaimed energy conservationist who prefers to look at life from a dull, gray perspective, as is described by his beginning monologue in episode 1. To summarize, high school life is often described as rosy, and not many people would be quick to disagree, though there are those who prefer to lead a gray high school life. That is to say, there are those who prefer the quiet, uneventful days of their classroom years as opposed to the lively, energy-filled days of sports, excitement, romance, you know the drill. If I don't have to do something, I don't do it. If I have to do something, I do it quickly. This is the creed that Oreki lives by, expressing his complete disinterest in involving himself in things that seem to be a waste of time, something that is often criticized by Oreki's best friend and self-proclaimed database, Fukube Satoshi. However, after being forced to join the classic literature club at the request of his older sister, Oreki meets Chitanda Eru, a beautiful, energetic honor student who can't help but be curious about even the smallest mysteries. And while this causes Oreki an immense amount of irritation, these spurs of curiosity often provoke his spectacular deduction skills. Little does he know, however, he'll have to utilize these skills more than just a couple times. And while this comes off as nothing significant at first, these investigations may have more of a lasting effect than anyone could have predicted. Now I wonder why that may be the case. Being a slice of life tied in with the mystery genre, and to this day one of the only mystery anime I've ever watched, it's exciting to see what kind of strange happenstances can occur during a supposedly normal high school life, while also avoiding something as cliche and overused like paranormal activity, applying logic and reasoning to figure out the why to said strange occurrences. All this ties in directly to Oreki's deduction skills, being able to pull a sound conclusion from nothing more than the end result of an event, or a pattern in multiple incidents. Of course, none of this would even take place were it not for Chitanda's curiosity, who gets in Oreki's face and says, "I'm curious," at anything that raises multiple questions as to how something happened. Pair that with the copious amounts of seemingly useless knowledge Satoshi carries around on a daily basis, and second girl Mayaka Ibara's surface viewpoints, these 4 members of the Classic Literature Club can unravel pretty much any mystery their daily lives throw their way. Better yet, between the constant unraveling in Chitanda's driving impulses, that only covers 2 key points that make this show so entertaining. From a writing perspective, every single event in the show ties in almost perfectly, with every major event being preluded to by small hints in prior episodes, keeping you on edge and wrapped in mystery after mystery, wondering what these hints could mean for the next episode while also being completely invested in the current ongoing investigation. As for someone who may not enjoy the plot premise as much as others, the visuals alone are stunning to say the least. Each episode, every scene is extremely detailed and beautiful to look at, showing you the shifts in perspective of certain characters, the contrast of rosy and gray, the subtle gestures that show what someone may be thinking or feeling without becoming verbally apparent. If the events of Hyouka could be summed up in one word, it would be coherent, given how well knit every detail in the show is put together without anything going to waste. Yet, even with the stunning visuals, the keen attention to detail, Oreki's above average deduction skills, and Chitanda's never-ending curiosity, all this still glosses over one major subplot that, in my opinion, is what truly ties everything together into a complete package and makes this series complete. That is to say, I'm talking about the minor hints of romance and the entire underlying subplot of finding and recognizing your own self-worth. While these elements are a lot less prevalent in the first half of the show, the second half really showcases the complex relationships between our main characters, as well as their inner conflicts with those feelings and the feats they are capable of. And while these issues are even less apparent in the main leads Oreki and Chitanda, they're blatantly obvious within Mayaka and Satoshi, with romantic feelings and intellectual capability respectively. Mayaka is often seen struggling with her strong feelings for Satoshi, which impacts her quite significantly on a day-to-day basis when combined with her low self-esteem. same. As for Satoshi, he refuses to embrace these feelings for fear that if he does so too soon, he may revert to his cold, angry past self, a thought process that comes from his inferiority complex, and acceptance that he will never be the best at anything. From this inferiority, one word can be used to describe the difference between those who have a knack for something and those who are below average: expectation. In fact, that very same expectation and inferiority is the darker side to the long-lasting friendship he has with none other than Oreki. While Satoshi is fully aware and envies Oreki's deduction abilities, those same abilities are something that Oreki isn't fully aware of, as he's never really looked at a mirror and thought about what exactly he's good at. In other words, he didn't really care. He didn't feel the need to waste the effort of evaluating himself, and thus has a complete indifference to the world around him, hence his gray high school view. And yet, that all changes when he meets Chitanda. Driven by the thought of returning to the empty, uneventful hours of his day, Oreki feels the need to appease Chitanda's curiosities. Though, while not putting too much thought into it initially, this affects Oreki more than anyone could really expect. Not only seeing how Chitanda's curiosity sparks interest in anything small to large, as well as her logic behind her curiosity and even the strong moral conflict she has by entertaining her impulses, Oreki starts to question certain aspects not about Chitanda, but about himself. He starts to not only question why he begins to entertain his own thought process, but also the thought of, what if I am really talented at this? Wondering if he really is capable of something special and the changes that start happening around him, he even starts to question his entire outlook on life, wondering if the gloomy, gray lifestyle is what he truly wanted, or if he just felt as if he couldn't apply himself to the rosy, energetic life of his friends and peers, and felt envious of that. What that ends up boiling down to comes back to his episode 1 monologue of seeing these activities as unnecessary. Nothing about what he says implies that he has a negative view of it. He's just indifferent, feeling that he can't be bothered to be a part of the chaotic roller coaster that is a normal high school experience. It's not that he didn't care, it was just that he didn't see himself being a part of that chaos, preferring the quiet instead. That finally begs the question of, why? Why does he just now have a change of heart? Why couldn't he recognize from the beginning his own strengths and weaknesses? Why is it just now that he decides to put in the effort he's capable of? Why is it that Chitanda was the turning point that shifted the entire way he looks at himself and at life as a whole? Needless to say, I can't help but be curious.